I'm Alex Haugland.
And I'm Amy Haugland.
And this is our 1971 Citroën D-Special.
Welcome to Everyday to Exotic.
Allons-y!
Allons-y!
How'd you do that on the first take?
Practice. There's over 200 cars in the Haugland Collection.
And it just keeps growing.
Our goal is to try and drive them all.
Each episode, we'll talk about the car's history, showcase its design and features, and dive into its mechanicals.
Then we'll take it out on a drive through the beautiful roads of Oregon.
Finally, we'll rate our car to see where it stands in the Haugland rank. In this episode of Everyday to Exotic,
our Citroën is sneaky.
It's in disguise. Alex plays with hydraulics.
Car go up. Car go down. And Amy gives good parenting advice.
So if you have children in the back and they are fighting, you pull that down and say, no, stay on your side. Stop touching each other.
All this and more on today's episode of Everyday to Exotic.
But first, let's take a look into the car's history.
I got that.
Citroën established itself in France in 1919 and quickly grew its reputation as an innovative car producer. Even before World War II, with vehicles such as the traction Avant, they adopted things like front-wheel drive and unibody construction before just about anyone else. And that led to cars like the practical and inexpensive Deux Chevaux.
Following World War II, the aging traction Avant was in need of a successor, and Citroën had already been working on a new design even before the outset of the war. The design came to final release in 1955 at the Paris Motor Show with the introduction of the revolutionary Citroën DS, pronounced the same way as the French word for goddess, which received so much interest that by the end of the 10-day show, Citroën had already received 80,000 deposits for the new car.
The new car had a body designed and styled by the Italian sculptor Flaminio Bertoni, along with the French aeronautical engineer André Lefebvre, giving a revolutionary shape and style to the automobile. The significant advance in automotive design, however, was largely underneath, with the integration of a complex hydropneumatic self-leveling suspension system designed by Paul Maget, and which premiered the year before the DS on a Traction Avant 15.6, where it served as a testbed for the new system.
The suspension system allowed the Citroën to remain level in almost all circumstances, giving the car a floating magic carpet ride quality that easily absorbed the bumps of rough roads that were still typical in post-war France, as well as much of the developing world. Since the car already had an engine-driven hydraulic pump for the suspension, Citroën opted to adapt that system to also serve the newly introduced disc brakes, clutch, a semi-automatic transmission, as well as power steering, making the car relatively effortless to drive.
All of this led to the DS becoming Citroën's top model and also a comparatively expensive car. To keep a more affordable option, the company also chose to build the ID19, with ID being pronounced idée in French, and thus the same as the French word for idea. The ID19 shared the same body and suspension as the DS, but removed the hydraulics from the transmission and power steering and had a more simplified brake system.
The car's excellent handling on rough roads made it a successful car in rally racing, where the traction and speed over rough surfaces played an outsized role in performance, and the DS won the Monte Carlo Rally in 1959, the 1000 Lakes Rally in 1962, and, quite controversially, the Monte Carlo Rally again in 1966, after the actual winning Mini Cooper team was disqualified for having non-compliant headlights.
The Citroën's innovative suspension also played a role and was credited for saving French President Charles de Gaulle's life in 1962, when his motorcade came under machine gun fire from a far-right French dissident group in an attempted assassination on the way to the Paris airport. Bullets had riddled the car's body and punctured multiple tires, but despite the damage, the Citroën was able to drive at sufficient speed and get away from the assassins.
To some extent, Citroën proved to be a victim of its own success with the DS, in that, having released such a revolutionary car, it made it nearly impossible to follow up with anything equally revolutionary, and there were no new clean sheet designs out of Citroën for the next 15 years.
In 1970, the ID19 was replaced with a D-Special and D-Super at the lower end of the model range, with a 2-liter and 2.1-liter engine respectively, and a 5-speed gearbox available on the D-Super.
Production finally ended in 1975, after 20 years, when the car was replaced by the Citroën SM, which was fitted with a Maserati-developed V6 engine, replacing the antiquated design whose core dated back to the Traction Avant of 1934.
Our Citroën is a D-Special model, which was sold new in the United States, and we acquired it about a year ago. Since our acquisition, we have serviced the car, fixed several paint and body issues, and have prepared it to be a reliable driver. There's still some work to do on this car, but at this point, we think it is ready to take out on the road and film for this channel. If you want to learn more about Citroën's history, please also watch our episode on our Citroën D-Special. So here we have our 1971 Citroën D-Special. This isn't a DS, technically. Really, it's more or less the same car in shape and form, and in many ways, most of the function. There are a few minor differences, such as brakes and some of the additional hydraulic features that the DS would have had over this. This was sort of the lower-end model in many ways. That said, it has a lot of the same features and gives a good idea of what it's like to drive both cars.
Also, our version has been upgraded in the course of its life when it was restored. So it has some features that even the original D-Special would not have had.
Absolutely. Some of the trim on this is Palace spec trim. The Palace was the top level of the DS, essentially. So this car got the leather seats. It has some of the exterior trim and things that are unique to the Palace that would have not ever been on this car when it was new. The other thing is this is a US market car. And one of the things you didn't get on US market cars was these European headlights. They designed a car that has a lot of revolutionary features, but one area that they didn't really upgrade much was the engine. It really doesn't have the best acceleration. It doesn't have the greatest amount of power. In order to make the car work, there are two focuses that they had. One was aerodynamics, and this car has a very aerodynamic shape and really represents sort of space-age styling that made it such a revolutionary car when it came out. The other thing that they really focused on was keeping the weight as low as possible. So although this car is pretty good sized and has a fair amount of steel in it, a lot of the steel in the body panels is very thin, it's very light. The roof of the car is made out of fiberglass because that kept the weight down.
This is one of the reasons why if you see cars at a car show, do not touch them, do not lean on them. Because this is one of those cars that you could probably literally dent by pushing on it.
By my understanding, when they originally designed this car, the intention was that the fenders, these fenders on the front and the rear, were actually going to be made out of plastic because it would have been lighter. The problem was they got 80,000 orders immediately. It's like, oh crap, we can't produce these fenders fast enough in plastics. So they pretty much were stuck having to stamp them out of steel. There are compromises they had to make in order to just meet the demand, and at the same time, it really had some innovative features and thought that went into it.
And while this was set up to be a family car, this is not a race car, this is not necessarily a car that you're going to replace every year, it was still not technically created to last until now.
Yes.
It's not a comment on the quality of the car.
Not overall.
Not overall.
I mean, overall durability, yes, but again, this is a family car. This was intended to be a very high-end, luxurious, comfortable car for a family, but you wouldn't normally expect people to keep a car like this more than 10 or 15 years. That would have been probably towards the outside of what the life expectancy would have been. And now here we are, this being a 1971 model, this car is older than I am, and I'm a hell of a lot older than 15 years old, so it's lasted quite a while, and it's kind of impressive how well these cars have lasted.
So one of the things that I love about the design of this car is it really leans into this is what the future is going to look like. It's very Jetsons in a lot of ways. To me, this looks like somebody looked at a shark and said, let's build a spaceship based on that.
So on the front of the car, we start seeing some of the sort of more unique features here of this example. So we have our bumpers and everything, but we also have grills and things inset in this. One of the fairly rare options on this car is air conditioning. And my understanding is that on the air-conditioned examples, they basically had to get more airflow in for the cooling the condenser. And so as a result, you have these extra grills on the front of the car.
I will say I really like this sort of grill cover, I guess. It almost looks like a layered bumper. It's just cool, it's pretty. There's a lot of chrome up here, and I actually really like that.
So tucked down below, we have our front turn signals, these little pods underneath the bumper. Overall, a pretty clean design, everything on this car is really pretty well integrated into the body and flows with the body. The headlights here with their glass covers, the one here is your primary headlight, but the second headlight there turns as you turn the steering wheel. And so that way it helps you kind of see around corners as you're going around corners. Not a bad thing in a land where we have a lot of deer. You might also be able to make out that we have yellow bulbs in these headlights. That was actually a French thing, and they pretty much required yellow headlights. Technically not standard here in the US. These little panels here, in this case, are purely decorative. They look like they're a vent, but they don't actually go through or do anything. As we rotate the car here and move back, basically you'll see that the car is sitting fairly low at the moment. This car has a hydraulic suspension system. When you start it up, it engages a pump on the engine that raises the car up to its normal ride height. Looking at it from the side, you can really see the aerodynamic shape of this car. I mean, it flows from the front back up over a windscreen that gives you enough headroom that sitting in the car, you can comfortably sit there even in a hat and not necessarily have your head up in the roof. But then it flows back over this beautifully slanted back glass, down over the tail and out. So a very flying saucer-like shape, really.
Something that I think is delightful about this car is, once again, the chrome. I love how it flows with the lines of the car. You have this beautiful frame that, swoops back, that leads into this trumpet shape or rocket shape that leads back into the turn signals that are right there. And those are just fully integrated into something that didn't have to be that pretty, but it is.
It's also kind of unusual because your turn signal's up here, but all of your other lights are down low down here, with your reverse light, your brake light, and your position lights.
People may not know to look for them right there, but they'll get the message.
I love this hinge. It's basically cast aluminum and just shaped beautifully, and it's a hinge for the trunk.
Again, I love that they took the trouble to make something utilitarian beautiful.
Now again, this being not a DS, but having some of the trim of the higher end cars, we have this panel here with a DS logo. Technically, this car shouldn't have a DS logo on it. One of the things you'll notice is access to that wheel is pretty difficult with the way that it's set up in there. If you need to change the wheel, it's a little bit tricky, but Citroën thought about that, and what they did is they put this chrome nut on the back. And if you use your lug wrench, the same one that you use to take the wheel off itself, and undo that nut, that is the only thing holding this entire fender on the car. You undo that and you can actually pull the fender back out of some rubber grommets, take it off, set it aside, and have full access to that wheel. One thing you'll also note back here is on the back of these cars, you have the symbol of Citroën, which is these chevrons. Now, on this car, we have gold chevrons. Technically, these should be silver because this is a D-Special, sort of in the ID series of cars. Gold would have only been on the DS's, while silver would have been the standard one put on all of the IDs. It's one of the easiest ways to tell from the outside what spec of car it actually is. Of course, this car's lying.
It's in disguise. Other interesting features in the back, if you look at the glass, it is heated, and underneath that heated glass is an aftermarket blind that is fully adjustable, so you can have a little more light or a little less light in the back for the comfort of your passengers.
While we're at it, and back here, let's actually open up and look into the trunk. So, if you take a look, the trunk on this car is absolutely massive. But before we get into the trunk itself, one thing I do want to point out is, as I was saying, they tried to build this car as lightly as possible, which means everything has as minimal amount of support as possible.
You can put a lot of wine in here, like a lot.
It is a French car.
Yes.
An ungodly amount of wine.
Yes.
I mean, that said, you won't be going very fast with too much wine because it gets heavy pretty quickly, but you can fit a lot of wine in here.
Yes. As long as you're okay with just driving very slowly.
So one other thing you'll note is there is no spare tire in here. The gas tank is tucked into the fender, so we get full depth of the trunk. The spare tire is actually mounted in the front. So it just gives you even more space to carry stuff. And this car can carry a lot of stuff.
I mean, I could probably climb in there. I'm not going to, but I could.
And with this, I think that covers the bulk of the exterior of the car. So let's move on to the interesting mechanicals. To open up the hood of this car, there are actually two rings that you have to pull, one on each side. I've already pulled the one on the other side, and pulling this one, I should be able to open the hood. It lifts up, there's a catch, a little safety catch over here that I have to release, and then it has a prop here that comes in and goes into a slot by the radiator. And as with the back, it's a pretty floppy, thin, as little metal as possible hood on this car. The first thing you see looking in here is your spare tire, which sits basically just right here in front of the radiator. Now, it doesn't really block any airflow for the most part from the radiator because all of that's coming in from underneath. And you have this vinyl bag that comes in off the ducts underneath to direct all of the air that comes in underneath up through the radiator itself. So the air coming through the vents has nowhere else to go but through the radiator. It has a zipper hiding behind the tire here that you can open up so you can clean all the bugs or whatever else might get in there and start clogging up the radiator itself. One of the other things you'll see under here is this large green can. It has a label on the top that says LHM. What that is actually the mineral oil system that Citroën uses for all of the hydraulics on this car. And it's a reservoir basically that pulls the oil out to operate the hydraulics, raising and lowering the car. It operates the pumps, it operates the power steering, it operates a lot of the unique features on these cars. One of the things you'll notice on this is that we have a little tube here with a level in it. And that level indicates how much fluid is in that reservoir. So you can tell at a glance how much is there. The main function of this system is honestly for the suspension. And the suspension on this car is far more unique than almost anything else. Each wheel is linked up to the hydraulic system, and when a wheel gets compressed up, going over a bump, it forces the corresponding wheels on the other side to come down to keep the car level, even at speed. And it makes these cars incredibly comfortable to drive over speed bumps and to drive over a lot of things that you normally would have to slow down in a lot of other cars. This car handles them beautifully. Our engine here is a pretty basic 4-cylinder engine. We've got a single carburetor tucked down here, single barrel, single carburetor. Looking in here, one of the things you will see all over these cars are these green spherical things. These are the accumulators in the hydraulic suspension system. They're used basically as sort of reservoirs to help maintain and balance the pressure, is my understanding, and help the suspension operate. So when you start up the car, it runs a mechanical pump from the engine, and that pump then builds up pressure in the system. And as it builds up pressure, the suspension lifts up and levels out. And then as you go down the road, it basically keeps the system up and running and keeps it up to pressure. When you shut it off, over time, it'll slowly settle and the car will sit back down to its default height. Your heater box is here. It has your heater core basically strapped in right here on top of the heater box itself. And you have a blower motor mounted in here that basically pushes all of the hot air into the car. The fuel pump is mechanical and tucked down here below the intake manifold. We do have an alternator on this car, being a 1971 era car. And then as we come around this side, we have our washer bottle, our AC compressor, fairly unusual on these cars. And then down here is the pump for the hydraulic system that is engine driven. And you can clearly see the suspension accumulator on this side here, just as it is on the other side. This also brings us to one of the other unusual things about this car, which is the jack here. This is the jack for the car. You notice it has no crank, it has no anything. Essentially what you do is you put a pin to lock it in place at the height that you want it to be. Then you engage the hydraulic system of the car itself to pick up the car, and this basically allows you to lower it again to pick up the wheel. Quite an unusual system. I think that the one downside to this is if the hydraulic system on your car isn't working correctly, it doesn't help much. But if the hydraulic system on your car isn't working correctly and you're on the side of the road, you shouldn't really be driving the car anyway. Underneath all the tools, you have the outlines of the tools. So you easily know what should be where and whether or not it's missing. Kind of a very French thing. Okay, with that we can close up the hood. With the engine, this car is actually front-wheel drive. So it feeds into a 4-speed manual transmission that basically just drives the front wheels. That gives you a nice flat floor through the entire car, giving you more room inside, makes it more comfortable for the passengers. That said, the car has essentially 4-wheel independent suspension with their unique hydraulic system that they have here. Each wheel is disconnected from the others as far as motion other than through the hydraulic system itself. Steering in this car is power steering, the brakes are power brakes, and the brakes are also boosted to some extent by the same hydraulic fluid that is used throughout the rest of the system, as is the steering. So this does not use conventional brake fluid for the car itself. The one last part to talk about here with the suspension system is, it is driver controllable. And if we come into the interior, with the engine running, you have this lever here that allows you to adjust on the fly what level the suspension is set to. So I can raise the car or lower it and basically adjust it from here. One other very distinctive thing that sets this apart from a DS and indicates that it is clearly an ID series car is the brake pedal. On this car, we have what appears to be a conventional standard brake pedal. On the DS, it was this weird rubber mushroom thing that you basically would push with your foot. And it's one of the things that for some people seems to be a downside with these, that you don't get that weird little mushroom. I actually like a normal brake pedal. So that leaves me handing it over to Amy to do the interior. So, Amy, your turn.
Welcome to the interior. It's very cushy in here. It's a very comfortable ride, even when the car is sitting still. So let's talk dash. It's plastic, because this is the 1970s, and plastic is also lighter than a lot of other things. So steering wheel is pretty cool. It's a Citroën steering wheel, which is why it has one spoke. It's wrapped in leather, which gives you good grip and keeps your hands from freezing off when you're driving this in the wintertime. The key, the ignition switch, is over here, which is, I've mentioned before, not where I'm used to having that. These vents here at the top are fresh air vents. There's vents down here on both sides of the steering wheel, and further in, those are air conditioning vents. This is air conditioning. It's very comfortable. You can move these levers in order to open and close the vents. The shift is a column shift. I do like a good column shift. Don't know what that says about me, but I do like that. Gauges are fun. We have the wheel of hazards here. That is your various lights that tell you that your turn signals are on, your headlights are on, your battery is doing something that you don't want it to do, your oil is low, etc., etc. There's also a really big light in the middle that tells you to stop. So if something really is going wrong, it's like, just stop. It's big, it's red, it's hard to miss. Also up here, we have this tiny little gauge that tells us how much fuel we have. This is an American market car, so the speedometer is in miles per hour, not kilometers per hour. It also has this very handy dandy little thing in the middle of the speedometer that tells you how much stopping distance you need, depending on how fast you're going. It's labeled very clearly that these are stopping distances for your dry road, so if it's wet, you'll need more. I like that all of those gauges, I can see them very well through the steering wheel. It helps that the steering wheel only has one spoke, so it doesn't get in the way. I love that. I have my pattern that tells me this is what gear you're in when you're shifting. I have my choke, which looks like it turns on a light, but it doesn't. Very handy over here. Ashtray. And your cigarette lighter, very conveniently placed next to each other. We have a clock that doesn't work, air conditioning controls, buttons that are fairly clearly labeled. I mean, it's easy to see, that's the hazards, that's the fan. I'm pretty sure this one turns on the heater on the back window. So this is also very important. This will tell you to fasten your seatbelts. This also tells you that seatbelts came standard in this car. And we have these fantastic, I love these buttons. They just click, click. It's just solid and satisfying. It is incredibly spacious in here. I have plenty of legroom. I have legroom over here. If I wanted to like stick my leg over here for reasons, there's no drive shaft in the middle here. It's front wheel drive car. It's all up there. And that just makes it feel a lot more airy in here. Something else that is just so stylish, I feel, about this car is how the door is designed. The armrest is kind of swoopy, and I love that little trim piece underneath. And the door latch is really fascinating because it's just this little lever that you push with your thumb. It's not a button, it's not, anything like that. It's just very easy. Even people like me with little bitty hands can do it. The back seat is spacious. It's not quite Bentley levels of spacious, but it's pretty spacious. And it's very comfortable. It also has a pull-down armrest. So if, you have children in the back and they are fighting, you can pull that down and say, no, stay on your side. Stop touching each other. We don't have kids, so we don't have that issue. Our friends know how to behave.
Yes.
Right. I think that we have covered all the important things about the interior. So let's actually find out what that driving experience I've heard so much about is like.
So this is not a car I was especially excited about getting. It's one that, I don't know, stylistically has never really appealed to me. I'm one of the people who on the divisive line does not think it is the most beautiful car ever made. There are several people who would completely disagree with me. Probably quite a few people watching this who will completely disagree with me. But the reason to have bought this car is to experience the drive. It is sort of a legendary driving experience, and that in its own right sort of made sense to pursue it. Now that we're out and about, I can kind of start seeing why some people love this. It really is a very interesting suspension and very interesting driving experience from that end. The car's not fast, really at all. It's not a sports car, especially considering that we're in the lower trimmed engine configuration. We aren't the high performance variant. But I don't think even the high-performance variant is going to be that fast, necessarily. But the real advantage of this car is what it's famous for. It's its suspension. And the suspension on this car is really good. I'm about to turn on a terrible road. It is a road that has been driven on by a lot of heavy trucks, and there's a lot of areas that are just really awful. I've driven this road in modern cars, I've driven this road in classic cars, just getting around town, where the road is just awful. And this car doesn't care, hitting it at speed. It's like, okay, there's rough patches and things badly done throughout here. I can feel that I'm going over bumps and things. I can see that it's bad, potholes and things like that. But it doesn't really care. It's still comfortable, it still stays pretty level. I can see why this would be a great car to drive through some of the back roads of California that we drove through not that long ago on a tour. It was miserable in a car with good suspension, but on this it really doesn't mind. Turning here, I'm not avoiding the potholes. Normally on this road I would, but since part of the point of this is to sort of get that experience, we're just going to drive straight through, and it really is pretty incredible. Hit every bump, you don't care.
You almost hover.
Yeah,
It's wow.
and here this railroad crossing has potholes all throughout it. No problems. Go over it, don't slow down, don't worry about it at all. Half the vehicles, you'd be worried about breaking a wheel on some of these. And this car just doesn't care. I mean, the brakes are very good. We don't have the, silly mushroom brake pedal thing that they put in the official DS, but the pedal is similar in the fact that it's kind of a switch. It's a lot like the pedal in our Maserati Bora, which is admittedly the Citroën design system because it was built when Maserati was owned by Citroën. See the episode that we filmed on Maserati Bora for more on that. I mean, this is a late enough car. It does have power steering again. It has just a lot of like innovative, unusual features, but there are times when cleverness gets you in trouble. So I'm actually really glad that we have the ID19 variant in this car as opposed to the proper DS with a true manual transmission, simpler brakes. One of the problems with a true DS is that you have this semi-automatic transmission that uses the hydraulics to shift it. If the seals fail on that, you're now dropping your hydraulic fluid into your transmission, contaminating your gearbox fluid. There are too many things to go wrong. And that's the problem with systems like this. They're great while they work, but when they stop working, it's terrible.
And they're not easy to fix and not easy to maintain.
And they're expensive, and no one knows how to work on them for the most part. Now, I mean, it was a good enough system that Rolls-Royce licensed the suspension and put them in their Rolls-Royces. So we have other cars that have the same type of suspension that have no Citroën badging at all. That said, I know people who get car sick in these much more easily, partly because they expect the car to move like a more modern, normally sprung car. And it's so floaty.
Feels a little bit like you're on a carnival ride or something.
Absolutely.
Like what's happening outside is virtual.
I mean, the suspension's fun to play with. I can say, oh, I want the car higher, I want the car lower, and just reach down, and it's like, okay, middle of driving, we're going to raise the car up because we can.
Oh my gosh. Sorry, I've not been in the car when you do that before.
Or slim it down.
Okay, that's too much fun.
Why? I don't know. I mean, I guess if you're going over fairly rough roads, it makes sense to be able to raise the car up.
Yeah, but you're not going to off-road this thing.
The suspension also does create issues. The fact that I basically have to start the car and wait for it to get up to pressure and raise up before I back out of the garage or I scrape the exhaust. It's part of the nature of the car, and if you forget to do it, it feels like you just ran into something because the exhaust catches. But overall, this doesn't drive too badly as a running around town car. I mean, it's a 4-speed. Gearing-wise, you're turning 3,500 RPM on the highway at 55, 60 miles an hour. It's not the fastest car. It's not what I'd want to be in very, very long periods, but it also doesn't seem to struggle at all doing that. Gearbox isn't too bad on this, but I think what lets it down the most is honestly the engine. I'm trying to climb a hill in third, and it won't climb the hill. I have to go down the second. Tried to climb the hill in second, and it will barely accelerate up this hill. Admittedly, this is a reasonably steep hill, but Citroën, they invested so much into the hydraulics that I don't think they had anything left to even consider taking the Traction Avance engine and making it really better. I mean, the reason that they partnered with Maserati by buying them is to get an engine that wasn't crap. And unfortunately, this car didn't get that motor. I'm literally just like flooring it now. And now we're at the top of the hill, now we can start accelerating. And that's in third gear. Most of my cars would have climbed this hill in third gear without a problem. Once you're up to speed, it's fine, but it just is not quite the power that it should have.
A car this space agey should not be climbing hills like a 1950s Morris Minor.
Yes. I hear a fair amount of engine noise coming through the firewall. It's not the best sound insulated car, but it's generally pretty comfortable in here. And it is relatively nice to drive.
Well, I do remember hearing something about someone who said something like the best part of driving one is that you don't have to look at the outside.
Yes.
The inside is perfectly acceptable.
The outside is a 1950s spaceship. This thing is, there's a reason I think though that there are really no other cars that look like these.
I like it for its period appropriateness. It's like, this was what they thought the future was going to look like at the time.
I mean, it broke a lot of ground in automotive exterior design, but it's ground that no one else tread. It's one of those things where sometimes it's so good that everyone copies you. Sometimes it's so good that no one dares copy you. Sometimes it's so bad that no one in the right mind copies you. Whichever way you want to look at this, it is whatever it is. I mean, the only car that I can think of that really sort of copied this is the SM, and that was sort of its replacement, and that was still Citroën. So I think that kind of summarizes my sense of driving this thing. It's been a worthwhile experience. I don't know that it's made me fall in love with this car, but it's been a worthwhile experience. And now it's Amy's turn.
Now it's time for me. So I'm just kind of getting used to this a little bit. This is my first time driving this. I tried this car on for the first time today. It is very smooth. Shifting is not too big a deal. I actually kind of like having the column shift. It's right here as opposed to having to reach down and around for it. That is one of the things that I enjoy learning about with these cars. It's nice to drive. I can get the seat far enough forward that it's not a problem to get the clutch all the way to the floor. Steering is, as Alex pointed out, extremely light.
Something's a little bit too light, but...
Yeah. It's sort of like the Stag in that it feels kind of super boosted.
Yeah.
It's a very relaxing drive, to be honest. I feel very in control. The brakes are good, steering's nice, it accelerates okay. As Alex pointed out, this is not a race car. This is a cruiser. This is for making your way around town, going to work, taking the kids to school, that kind of thing, in your fancy schmancy spaceship. I'm really enjoying this. I would say this car is not as much fun, just unbridled fun as some of the other cars, but it is enjoyable. It's just a very, very different experience. And we just went over railroad tracks, and this thing doesn't even notice.
Yep.
Something I want to say about the column shift. If you're in a car with a column shift, hand position is important because there are some gears that you pull towards yourself and some gears that you push away from yourself. It definitely makes shifting easier if you are not super experienced.
Yeah, the column shift doesn't take as much getting used to some extent as the gear stick coming out of the dash on the D-Special.
Oh yeah, that is weird. It's weird. I mean, it makes some sense once you sort of figure it out, but it's weird.
We're turning right at this light.
Turning
up to downshift to second, or stop, because it's turning yellow.
Yeah,
Shift to first.
the brakes definitely.
Okay, you're good?
Whoa! No, I'm not.
There you go.
All right.
You killed it, but that's okay.
Well,
Shift.
sometimes that happens. Even when you are a very experienced driver with a stick shift, sometimes you kill it anyway. So don't feel bad if you do. This is a metaphor for life. If you kill the car, it's okay. Just start it back up again and go.
Yeah, that's absolutely what you're trying to do. Teach.
Teach. This is educational television.
Oh no!
So in general, I have enjoyed this experience. I'm not necessarily going to hop in this and go for a drive every day, but I almost feel like this would be a nice road trip car.
I mean, I can see driving it around town in sort of an everyday environment. It would be a functional car for that. For the most part.
For the most part.
As long as you don't have too many hills.
Yes.
That was an incredibly comfortable drive, and we're back in the studio, so now it's time for the Haugland Score. Here's how it works.
Alex and I have individually rated the car in 5 categories, each with a rank of 0 to 10. Then we add our scores together to give us the final Haugland score.
After we combine our scores, the results go up on the board. So our first category is performance. For that, I gave this car a 4. It steers beautifully. It goes around corners nicely. The suspension's amazing. The engine is terrible. It just doesn't have the power I feel that a car this heavy needs.
I agree, and I gave it a 5 for similar reasons. I think one of the reasons why I did not give it a 4 was because I went back and looked at my scores for the Citroën D-Special, and I gave that a 4, and this performs better than the D-Special. So for style, I gave it an 8. It is incredibly distinctive. It is unique without being, oh my God, dreadful. It is unlike anything that came before it or after it.
Okay, there are cars that you either love or hate. This is a very divisive style to me. My mother described this car, not our individual, but this type of car, as looking like an upside-down bedpan. It is such an odd, different shape. My mother's Italian. It's French. It's not a style of a car that I'm particularly attracted to, but I love the fact that Citroën went out of their way to break molds, to do something different, to do something adventurous. So I'm going to give it 2.5 bonus points, which gives me a total score of 7.5 for style, because they went so far out of their way to create something amazingly different that even though I'm not particularly fond of it, it deserves recognition for that. Okay, moving on from there to drivability, I think that is really what this car potentially excels at. I gave it an 8. It is one of the most comfortable cars to drive around in.
And I gave it a 9. You can seat 4 adults comfortably. It has a spacious trunk. It's very, very smooth. It's easy for me to shift. It's easy for me to drive once I got used to the brakes. So for me, it's like, if I had to, I could totally use this as a daily driver and I would be fairly happy.
And you would be the coolest cat in that daily driver.
I would. So for significance, I gave it an 8.5. This car stands out in Citroën's lineup and in pretty much the history of the automobile as something incredibly innovative, incredibly avant-garde, I feel is a appropriate phrase to use for a French car. But they tried to do so many interesting things with the styling, with the way that it works, with the hydraulics. And so I think that makes it a very significant car.
So I gave it a 9, and a lot of that is for kind of similar reasons. This was the peak of Citroën, in my opinion, and they have never done anything really that's lived up to this since. So for delight, I gave it a 7.5, and it doesn't necessarily delight me that much, but again, this is about how other people react to the car. We drove past a construction worker on this tour, working on the side of the road, caught the car on the corner of his eye and said, "What was that?" He had the windows down, we could audibly hear him. It's like, okay, it absolutely caught his attention in the middle of his work because this very strange thing rolled by right behind him.
That he's never seen before.
Almost certainly never seen before.
And I gave it a 6.25. And part of that is that while I enjoyed driving it, I was not like instantly having fun, you know. However, as you pointed out, it gets a lot of attention. It gets a lot of reaction. People are not, oh, well, about this car at all. It turns heads.
Yes. Turns headlights.
It turns We did some math, and that gives us a score of 72.75 for our 1971 Citroën D-Special. That puts it in rank 17, just above our Triumph Stag and just below our Mercedes 280 SL.
This scored higher than I expected, even from me. People in the comments on this channel talked about, you need to drive a DS. Not necessarily a car I was excited about owning, but a car I wanted to experience. And it surprised me.
I think I really enjoyed it more than I would, for instance, if this was one of the earlier cars that we did, because I felt very confident driving it. I have to admit, I really do like the column shift. I do like that. As you heard from Alex, we are listening. We are paying attention to the comments. Sometimes they do influence what we drive. So please continue to like, subscribe, leave comments. Tell us what you think.
How dare we rank it that high? How dare we rank it that low? Hey.
But tell us why. And remember to tell your friends.
We'll see you next time.
Yep. All right. Until next time.
Ta-ta for now. Bye.